Hello, it's SKFC back here with another video, and we're going to be talking about Chelsea Football Club, my bum-ass club. They have lost again to Aston Villa, currently on a poor run of form. I've seen them win only 2 games in their last 10 matches, and today was a bit of an interesting one, just even when taking a look at the lineup for today. So the thing that stuck out to me today was the fact that there were 5 defenders on the pitch today for Chelsea, and Gusto, Chalobah, Colwell, Cucurella, and James. Obviously, Chalobah had to get taken out because of injury, and Tosin Adebayo came in for him, and he basically played most of the game. Palmer started at the right today, with Enzo taking up a lot of the 10 space, and then Cuckoo on the left. So it was definitely a interesting lineup change from the usual that Maresca usually goes with. So Chelsea today, they built up in a 3-2-5 shape, and Cucurella was the more conservative of the fullbacks. So kind of what Maresca aimed to do today was to have Gusto kind of being the one to overlap with Palmer cutting in on the right. He had Neto play as the false 9, so he was very fluid in terms of the areas that he was taking up. And then he had Nkunku, who again just didn't look very involved, kind of hugging the left, playing as a more isolated role. Another thing that I thought was really interesting was that today Enzo Fernandez, especially in the first half, was making a lot of runs to the box. He ended up getting a lot of box touches, more than he usually does, and obviously this was what netted in a goal for Enzo Fernandez. And one of the things I did think was really interesting was that it's also reflected in the XG stat, because he was the player that accrued the most expected goals for Chelsea, and which is not something that you would usually associate with him. Now, whether or not that was a good or bad thing, it kind of really just depends, because obviously he did get the goal, but he just usually doesn't really have the pace or the physical presence to be in the box. But I can't really fault him for that, because obviously that was what Maresca aimed to do today. Another one of the more low-key problems today was, Chelsea was having issues, in terms of properly building up. They were losing the ball in a lot of silly areas. And this was kind of something that kind of just compounded itself, throughout the game. Because even in the first half, especially after like the first half an hour, it was becoming more apparent that Villa were going to, I wouldn't say capitalize on that, but use that as a springboard for, the attacks that they wanted to mount up. And it got so bad that, especially in the second half, the Villa ended up with more possession. They ended up kind of, taking up a lot of the territory, which is something that you really want to avoid, especially because they are a good team, and especially when your team is the one that's already up, so you have the lead to protect. Now, I do think both goals from a Chelsea perspective were quite poor. So if we look at the first goal, right, this comes off of a Villa free kick in which none of the Chelsea players can properly clear the ball. And as you can see here, there's not a lot of pressure being put on the Villa players. And I wanted to also highlight, which I don't know if when the camera is going to, pan over to what Gusto is doing on the weak side. So you have Gusto here, who is ball watching the Villa player that's going to put in the cross. And he doesn't think to look at where Rashford is. And as we're very established, this has been a persistent issue when it comes to Gusto and marking the far post. So he's looking, he's ball watching, he's anticipating the cross, but he doesn't really know exactly where Rashford is. So all he knows is the cross is going to come in, but he doesn't have a good idea of where his marker is. And on top of that, which the linesman also spots, is that Enzo Enzo Fernandez also plays Rashford onside as well. So when the cross comes in, Gusto, who, like I said, doesn't know where Rashford is, so he's really just trying to intercept the pass, because he thinks he just probably needs to make a clearance, to stop Rashford from getting it inadvertently, puts it into his path, and in fact, actually, Loki makes it easier for him to hit the ball. And Rashford, to his credit, does well to kind of readjust himself to be able to guide the ball properly. And obviously, at this point, none of the defenders do a good job of keeping track of their runners over here. So you have two Villa players completely free to get on the end of the ball. And obviously, Asensio is the one that capitalizes on that. Now, the second goal is honestly probably even more egregious from the goalkeeper point of view, obviously. So here, um, Villa opt for a short corner. Chelsea players are in a complete scramble, so obviously they can't, get to this Villa player as well as Marcus Rashford. Tielemans sees Rashford's completely open, and of course passes it back to him because Palmer is closing down. And at this point, I also want for you guys to notice that Asensio is completely open, even despite the fact that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Chelsea players in and around him. James doesn't do well to spot him. None of these players do well to push up. I'm not really going to blame, I think this is Tosa. I'm not really going to blame him as much as obviously he's occupied with the Villa play over here. And Rashford, to be fair to him as well, does well to spot this. And none of the Chelsea players push up. And I don't understand why. There's 4 of them here. So they're all, trying to cover the same passing lane, which doesn't really make any sense. And because of that, Asensio was able to get the shot off. And of course, at this point, Jorgensen should still do better in terms of saving the shot, and it just goes straight right under him. And that is the game lost for Chelsea right there. From a Villa perspective, I think they did pretty well to get back into the game. You can see, just even by looking at the momentum chart, that Chelsea had a significant amount of the momentum for about the first 20 minutes. And from then on, Villa were able to create opportunities for themselves and kind of just grow into the game over time, which is why when you kind of juxtapose the first half statistics with the second half, it kind of paints a very clear picture of what went on. Right, in the first half, Villa only had about 0.8 xg. They had slightly less possession, and Chelsea were still able to get opportunities to score even outside of the goal. I believe there was one where Martinez intercepts a cross from Neto, and there was a couple of opportunities as well. And then you juxtapose that with the second half, and it's completely inverted. Villa have more possession, more XG, more shots, more big chances, more passes. So they're able to, really start to dictate the game and, get what they need to get, do what they need to do in order to win the game. So, I mean, at this point, you look at the table, from 5th to 10th is incredibly close, only separated by 4 points. Kind of at this point, Chelsea's only saving grace is the fact that a lot of the teams around them are just as inconsistent as they are. I believe Newcastle are playing Nottingham Forest tomorrow. So, from a Chelsea perspective, I'm not even really sure who you would rather, what kind of a result you would want. But yeah, they've given themselves a lot to do in terms of, trying to make that top 4 this season. And there are plenty of teams right on their heels. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how this season plays out. But yeah, that's my video for today. If you made it to the end of the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And most importantly of all, remember to have a good day.